For years, the Atlanta Braves have been looking to develop the next shortstop, and now they have 3 or 4 guys who could potentially do it for the Atlanta Braves in the coming years.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. Also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. I've been covering the Atlanta Braves in both written and podcast form for over 10 years now. And again, this is Locked On Braves, your daily connection to all things Atlanta Braves. On today's episode, we'll have Gaurav from Battery Power joining me, prospect expert, going to be breaking down everything Atlanta Braves prospects, dealing mainly with the shortstop position, where he feels like there are 3 or 4 guys who have the potential to be the Atlanta Braves' future shortstops. Looking forward to that conversation. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Well, I'm excited to have one of the best Braves prospect experts out there joining me today in Gaurav. I've been trying to get him on the podcast for a while, and he's been gracious enough to join me here today. Going to be a 2-part episode. I have part of it this week, part of it the next week. But Gaurav, thank you so much for joining me here today. Looking forward to our conversation on Braves prospects.
No, I really appreciate the invite, and I'm always up for talking Braves prospects anytime. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, as you know, if you're an everydayer of the podcast, I always drop his name for a while. I was nervous to, and then I had to reach out to him and say, "Hey, how do you pronounce your name?" Because with the last name like mine, it gets butchered all the time. So I was afraid I was going to do that on the podcast, but I reference your work a lot. I think you're one of the best out there in covering Braves prospects. I know you and Garrett as well. Matt Powers on the draft side of things too. You guys over there at Battery Power, you're my go-to for Braves prospects, and so I'm really excited to talk to you about it. And this isn't to shame national prospect outlets, but you want to really know how the prospects in your farm system are. Listen to the guys that watch them all the time, and that's the only team they cover. So again, if you're not already following these guys, make sure you go and do so. Gaurav on social media is at GVEDAK. So again, so excited to have him on here today. And you know it by my social media tag at Shortstop Ball. You know what I want to talk about, and that is shortstops, because that's been the question for a while now, is who is going to be that next shortstop for the Atlanta Braves. You got Ha-Seong Kim on a 1-year deal this offseason, so you know you're going to be cycling through back next year looking for that shortstop. So Garrett, let's start there at the shortstop position, because the Braves took a couple in this last draft class, but I'm just going to ask you straight up, who's your favorite shortstop prospect in the system right now?
It's interesting. It's a really good question too, because there's a lot more tools in this system now than there were a couple of years ago. I think the one that really sticks out to me right now is John Heel, international signing from a couple of years ago. He's someone that he's going to stay at short. He's got double elite speed. He's got a great approach at the plate. His hit tool is really, really good for someone his age. He's really outperforming what you expect someone as young as he is to do. And by all accounts, he's been a model teammate. Everyone in the clubhouse loves him, things like that. He puts in the work, and that's saying a lot, because the Braves did go big. They drafted Tate Southisene in the first round last year, who seems to be a really different kind of prep player, because he's got a much higher floor than most prep players. But then his ceiling is also really high if he's able to hit on all of the different talents he has. And then of course Alex Lodis and what he did in college is nothing small. He's someone that has really kind of struggled with his approach in college, and we saw some of those flaws to start his professional career. But again, if there's an organization that you want to be in to teach you approach, it's the Braves, because we've seen tremendous progress across the minors really over the past few years. So he's another high end talent that the Braves were able to bring in. But to really answer your question right now, I would probably go with John Heel.
Yeah. And he's somebody that I was really focusing on a lot this offseason. I did an episode on him earlier in the offseason after watching a few videos or watching a few games of him, and he looked bigger than I just thought he would. I don't know why I thought he'd be a small guy, but he looked bigger in the box than I kind of imagined. And the one thing for me, and then I always say, and my listeners know, for me, you got to watch somebody several times on defense to really get an idea of how they are, especially at the minor league level, because you don't really have the analytics to go off of a lot, especially at the lower levels. So it's interesting and great to hear you say that you think he can definitely stick at the shortstop position. And in my small sample that I saw, I could see that too, and I could get the sense of that. I thought the arm was very good. I thought the range, the quickness was all there. But just kind of to double down on that for our listeners, you do think that John Hill will stay at the shortstop position, or at least has the ability to stay there?
Yeah. I think he's still got a little work that needs to be done, of course. But, I do see him as an everyday shortstop and someone that, like you said, the range is going to be incredible because he's got insane speed, but then on top of that, his arm is fantastic for the position. He can really play any position he wants. So any kind of lapses perhaps that you'll see in the near future, he can overcome with his physical attributes. So I do think he's going to stay at short, and I do think he can really succeed at the position as well.
All right, so here's the follow-up question to this now, because he did reach Double-A last year. Now, that might have been an aggressive promotion just because of some of the guys they drafted, but you get to Double-A in the Braves system, you're not that far away. What is your timeline expectation for him?
I don't think next year. We did see at the end of the year one of the biggest progressions for John Hill was his ability to hit for power and essentially, specifically pull slide power. We really saw that start to come to fruition at the end of last season, and that was one of the biggest cursors on him was can he hit and can he hit for power? Because you see the walk rate. It's outstanding. He's not going to swing outside the zone. Can he make enough contact and can he elevate the ball? Uh, Early in his career, that ball, as soon as he would hit it, his ground ball rates were really high. And I mean, he still got on base because he's got that truly elite speed. But that's not someone you project to be an everyday, potential franchise changing shortstop. But late last year, we really saw him start to pull the ball and pull it for power, hit it into the gap, start launching that ball and getting up in the air. And with it, comes a new set of, okay, I need to see what you can do for a prolonged set of time now. Going into 2026, I want to see that pull side power continue to play. If he continues to show that approach, I don't think he's going to start in Double A. Let's go ahead and get that started. I believe the move to Double A was really to get him more reps to end the season. So I don't think he'll start in Double A. He might. You don't know what the Braves will think about with Alex Lodis because he did not have a great debut at the plate. So I could see him starting in Rome with a really quick promotion. But if he'll continues to show that pull side power and we're seeing those ground balls start to become line drives, I think his timeline's really accelerated by a ton. We could see him potentially into the mix for that 2027 spot, which would be a massive relief because if he doesn't take that next step, I really don't see an internal candidate for shortstop for that year. Uh, I do see, the potential in the prospects. There's tons of Tate Southisene, Alex Lodis, again, John Heel, Cody Miller. They all can play the position. Don't want to put them on, an MLB grade quite yet. That's something that is reserved for the Braves, a lot of pitching prospects. But overall, I think conservatively, it probably makes more sense for him to be a 2028, but there is an outside shot we could see him in 2027.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. Especially if they have to, not that they have to, but if they do promote him back to Double-A. And Double-A is not that, like you said, you want to see that power. Double-A is not, the Southern League's not really where you want to go to see that power because it's tough to hit for power there. But you could see him move a lot quicker. I want to move to another name you've already mentioned several times. I feel like this is a somewhat divisive prospect in Alex Lodis. I was somebody leading into the draft process that I didn't necessarily love him, but that's when a lot of people were saying he needed to be that first round pick. I definitely did not want him as that first round pick, and the Braves didn't have to get him there, and they got him with the next pick, which is fine. And look, it's a small and I do watch a lot of college ball, but it's mostly SEC. I do get to watch some of his games at Florida. Did get to watch some of his games at Florida State, but the small sample size that I watched, it was quite ugly. Just to be quite honest with you, the bat. I think there was one game that I watched. I think he homered in the first inning and then he struck out his next 4 at bats.
Yeah.
And it feels like that kind of all or nothing swing. Shortstop, I loved the way he looked defensively. I thought the actions were really smooth defensively at shortstop, but at the plate, it felt like an all or nothing type of approach.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not too much to add on to that. I think defensively, he's going to stick at short. He's someone that will stick at short for the rest of his career. The gaps really come from expanding the zone. He chases high a little too much. He chases wide a little too much. Those are things that in the minors they're going to absolutely, especially as you move up, they're going to absolutely take advantage of. And so with Lodis, the ceiling is astronomical because you are talking about a potential power hitting shortstop that's going to be really good defensively, but will he stop the chasing? And that's really the biggest thing, and that's what the Braves are really going to be gambling on with him is can they instill in him what they've had success in the recent in the real recent history of the organization. You know, you look at someone like Isaiah Drake, who was super raw coming into his the start of his pro career, and then you look at him last year, and he's a completely different player. He's someone that's cut down on his chase. He's someone that's cut down on swinging outside the zone. He's making good contact, and you try and replicate that with every single positional prospect. So the Braves are definitely gambling on Lodis, and I do agree with you. That first round grade would have been a little. It would have been a little disappointing because he's someone that has that massive hole, and that's something that prospects don't just overnight acclimate to and fix. So it is a big issue. I think this coming year, my expectations for him are, can he at least improve his OBP? Can we see him start to cut that chase rate just a little bit? I don't really consider him, someone for that starting shortstop. Like I said about John Heel in 2027, just because those kind of flaws in the majors are you're talking about someone with like a 40% K rate. That's someone that's not going to play in the majors. So it's going to be a big year for him. Again, the age is kind of not against him, but he's someone that you want to be able to promote aggressively, especially since he did play college ball for as long as he did. They do have the flags, but man, that ceiling is franchise altering, and that's really what the Braves are trying to gamble on.
Because you're talking about a guy that could be a plus defender and a 25, 30 home run a year type
Absolutely.
of hitter. So, I mean, you're right. And maybe because I've been so pessimistic on him, I haven't focused on what the ceiling is, but you're right. I mean, it is a massive ceiling if he's able to cut that down. A name I didn't write down here, but when you said that 40% K rate, it immediately made me think of Ambiorus Tavares, a guy that I think is really good defensively, but he also has struggled with the strikeouts. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, but you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. And maybe you're like me, you're already looking ahead to a Major League Baseball season. They have future odds out there as well for that, for World Series winners, National League winners, all that you can see at FanDuel.com, plus NBA, NHL, college football, so much going on, college basketball, a lot of sports happening right now, and they got all the odds there at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play-safe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast and network. If you're a true diehard Braves fan, the Everydayer All Access tier is built for you. You'll get one-on-one text access with me and Lindsay, all access episodes with me and Lindsay, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to lockedonbraves.supercast.com to join the Everydayer program and unlock all access. You can also find the link in the show notes. I do want to get into the other guy that was on that team that I watched a little bit was Cody Miller. And he's a guy that's just impressive. I immediately get the reaction that he's just a ball player.
Yeah.
I think he can hit. I get the question for him, and I think you kind of said this earlier, is can he play shortstop?
Mm-hmm. I think he can, and I think he can play it admirably. I don't see him as like a platinum platinum glove winning shortstop or anything like that, but I do see someone that can handle a position. The only problem with Cody is he is so athletic that they can really take advantage of it and put him really across the field. He's someone that looks like he could project to be able to play center field. He could play left or right because he's got a great arm. Again, he's got double plus speed. He can cover a ton of range. He's incredibly intriguing, and really the biggest thing about him is how versatile he is. Where are the Braves going to play him? Because they do have a bunch of shortstops, and we did see him not, we saw him play some shortstop last year, but like, where did the Braves feel his long-term fit is going to be as they try and progress all of these shortstops at one time? I think that's really the biggest thing working against them is his ability to play other positions at a really high level. Is you might see him shift away from that shortstop position, but he's someone I am extremely high on. He's got extremely high EV rates. He does not chase. He was one of the best. He had one of the best approaches in college baseball last year. And, really the thing with him was, can he produce against bigger talent? And what we saw to start his professional career was like, yeah, that doesn't seem like a problem whatsoever. Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. I think Cody Miller is going to be one of the highest rising prospects next year, not just in the Braves, but I think across baseball.
Yeah, no, I was really impressed with what I saw of him. And he's the guy they started him at single A originally, right? And then he demolished there. And so they
Yeah.
immediately had to bring him up to high A and Rome. Two more names I wanted to talk about. Another one from this last draft class, and that is the first round pick, and that's Tate Southisene. And obviously immense talent, as you mentioned him earlier, a low floor, but a very high ceiling. I think for me, and you can talk about him, his full range of talents that he has, but I think just positionally, I don't know. I'm sure he could stay at shortstop. I'm sure he's that athletic that he could. You're talking about a guy that could either play short or center. So they're athletic. Where do you see him landing more? Is it just based on need?
For him, I think it's very similar to Cody Miller. I think it's based on need. He does have that versatility as well. I do like what I see at short, especially for his age. It looks really good. It looks really clean. He's someone that has a great first step. Like his arm, I think he can handle the position without any issue. I think he can really succeed in the position without any issue. But like Cody, because of that supreme athleticism, maybe the Braves, based on need, if his bat is performing as well as they hope, and he's someone that could move positions just because the Braves need a bat like that in the lineup. Again, that's like really, really early to say something like that, of course. You're talking straight projection at this time, but I do like what I see from him at short, and I do think he can handle it. He can handle a position, but the issue is going to become, how do we handle all of these talented shortstops if they all succeed? And it's a really good problem to have. Uh, in my mind, if you have a Cody Miller, Tate Southisene, and Lodis all succeeding, you could probably see Lodis stay as short. You can see Tate shift somewhere else, right, like center, and then Cody Miller, he's someone that you just plug in anywhere and have fun. So it's a really incredible problem to have, and something the Braves have not had as this decade. Like, I can't remember
Yeah.
the time I've been this positive about a position itself, and then on top of that, just the talent and the system itself.
Yeah. I mean, you got me very excited because I've been the one for a while. Obviously, shortstop ball is my my Twitter handle. So I've been wanting that next big shortstop for the Atlanta Braves. And it just feels like the system has been so empty for so long. And so to now in basically one draft, you've
Yeah.
completely turned things around where you now have 3, 4 guys that can handle position and have the ability to hit, the potential at least to hit. So another one though that is just going to be projectable at this time is Jose Perdomo. Now, we didn't get to see much of him after they first signed him. And then this past year, obviously wasn't great either. And I know we haven't really got to see much of him video wise, but anything you're at least hearing or any type of expectations, hopes on Perdomo?
I don't have many expectations for him next year, and the biggest positive that we got from him last year was his ability to stay healthy. That's he's had a bunch of soft tissue injuries, which is a little scary for someone his age. He had the problem with the hamstring, again, something you don't want to see from someone that's 17, 18 years old. So that was a big flag. But last year he was able to stay on the field for the most part. He was able to get reps, and that was big. Uh, didn't see the most out of him, especially for someone with his accolades and someone that was so well revered. But again, still extremely young. If he were to take that next step, then he automatically probably becomes the highest ceiling shortstop in the organization, just because the potential with his bat is, franchise altering, as someone that will hit for power, hit for really high, hit for good power, hit for a high average, and should have a good enough approach to get on base at a high clip. Again, someone that's a game changer. But have we seen that from him? No, not necessarily. And I expect, at this point, he's got to be close to 20. So we're most likely going to see his stateside debut, or at least maybe not debut, but,
Full season
Augusta.
ball, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we'll be able to see him this year and really get eyes on him. But there's a lot of risk, and he's got to show up next year, especially for someone that got that bonus that he did.
Yeah, so he's actually still just 19, doesn't turn 20 till next September. Actually, my son's
There you
birthday,
go.
my oldest on the 20th. So he is really young. But again, another one of these international prospects that you sign for a big amount. And just so far, we haven't seen much from, although we have from one guy that maybe we'll get into here in a second. But I am very excited about the shortstop position, just to kind of wrap that up there. And you already answered one of my questions. If there was to be one of these guys to be ready for 2027, it would be John Hill, which I definitely agree with that. I think Lodis, just because he is that, because I've had many guys, many listeners, tell me that they think he could be the shortstop in 27. And look, just what I've seen so far, there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made at the plate for him to get there offensively. Defensively, like I said, I think he looks ready. And as a college guy, you would hope he'd move pretty quickly, but there's definitely some things to work on there. So thank you so much for breaking down those shortstops. But I want to move into the rest of the system offensive wise. What other bats in the system could you see making a big impact? And look, a lot of people talk about the arms in this system, but you've seen Michael Harris, you've seen Drake Ball, and you've still seen them be able to develop some bats at the upper levels. But where are those bats in the system right now, outside of the ones we talked about at shortstop?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of them are in the lower minors, and that's going to be the way. That's just going to be the way for the next couple of years. You see a lot of the free agent signings that the Braves have had this offseason have been for those high minors, AAA, because they just don't have the depth. But when you look at the system going down to the DSL, there are some talented guys that have that high ceiling. Gone are the days where, David McCabe was your top rated prospect, your top rated position prospect, someone who, maybe doesn't even have an MLB grade anymore. But you look at, just last year, you look at Augusta, they had Owen Carey, who performed much better than I expected for someone his age. Uh, Eric Hartman as well. He's another player that that showed off a really advanced hit tool for what I thought he was going to, and then absurd athleticism, and he was able to get on base at a decent clip. He was able to wreak havoc on the base pads. Those are a couple people in low A that really showed out. Isaiah Drake, while you look at the numbers, they don't really stand out or anything. But what you see and you look at every year is you see massive progression across. And that's one of the biggest things. He was so raw when he was drafted, but the tools are 100% there. And you're starting to see it slowly start to click there. And then, of course, when you look at the draft itself from last year, one of my favorite prospects, or one of my favorite draft picks in general, that the Braves made was Connor Essenberg, the outfielder. Super young, a prep outfielder, but he's got mammoth power. And from all accounts, I like his swing as well. I don't think he needs much work there. Will he be able to hit, advanced secondaries? Who knows? But he has enormous offensive potential. And again, these are a lot of these players, we not even including the shortstops that we just talked about, it didn't exist in the system going back more than 2 years. You were talking about maybe one or two players, and now we have like six or seven or eight really. And then you can even go down to the DSL and the FCL, but there's too much projection there to really get excited about. Um, we saw, let's even look at Luis Guanipa. He struggled with
Yeah.
injuries most of his career, but he started to put those things to really start to put things together at the end of last year, and we saw a little more progression there. So there's a lot more excited to get there's a lot more to get excited about when it comes to position players. Unfortunately, most of them, or not most, all of them are still, high A and lower.
Yeah, I know Augusta was the team last year that it's the box score that I was checking
Absolutely.
every night to see some of those guys down
Absolutely.
there. Gary Hartman, Drake. It was really fun to see what they were doing night in and night out. And it's also exciting too because you're sitting there talking about which bat you like out of the recent draft, and I'm having to think, okay, there's a lot of names to go through because I thought you were going to go with a
Yeah.
surprise name in Dixon Williams too, because he's another guy that they drafted and
Strong.
immediately just came out and had a strong debut too. So there's just so many guys just from this recent draft that you can,
Hmm.
and look, some of that is just the newness of it too, right? But there is a lot just to look at these guys and what they can do. And yeah, the Connor Essenberg one, obviously haven't got to see much of him yet. So a lot of excitement there, but just, I want to move to a draft question real quick, and then we'll get back into this because while we're talking about it, did you feel like it was a dedicated shift in this last draft to really focus more on hitters, or it was just coincidence?
I think a little of both. I think it
Yeah.
was a necessary adjustment that the organization had to take simply because when you looked at the system from top to bottom, there was no one really to get excited about position wise from Gwinnett down to Augusta, well, down to Rome at least. And you can't succeed. Yeah, the Braves have a ton of money, and you're seeing them try and push for again for a top five payroll, but you simply can't succeed by buying every single player. And so they needed to make these changes. And I think it happened like for Connor Essenberg, let's take for example, like that was a circumstance, and being available, them being able to go with Tate in the first, being able to then be able to afford Briggs McKenzie, the pitcher, and Essenberg, and all that working out, I think it was happenstance. But for the most part, I think it's safe to say that the Braves saw that the depth in the upper minors was really rough, and they needed to make the necessary adjustments. And to their credit, I've really loved who they've picked the past 2 years. Again, where you are talking about Owen Carey, Eric Hartman, those kinds of high ceiling players, and then you add in what they did last year, and there are a lot more players to get excited about. So I do think it was a necessary shift, and something that you don't want to say you're not going best player available. Every GM's going to say I'm always going best player available, but I do think it was a two factor again, a little bit of luck, and then wanting to make sure that they take care of some of these issues.
Yeah. Definitely needed to have. I mean, I've talked about it before. You locked up this core, so you knew you had some time to try to recoup the system, but it's getting to that point now where you need to recoup the system to get ready for that
Hmm.
next wave. So again, I'm with you. I've loved the drafts they've had the last couple of years. I want to ask you though, and I think I know the answer based on the ranking, the latest rankings you did over at Battery Power, your top 30 prospect rankings over there. Which bat in the system do you think has the
Yeah,
highest ceiling?
yeah, that's Diego Torrance.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you can actually throw Connor Essenberg in there, but I've never seen him play. I've never heard from coaches about him yet. It's just pure projection and scouting reports and things like that. But overall, I think it's got to be Diego Torrance. Everything I've heard about him is he walks the walk and he talks the talk. He incredibly talented, massive EVs, great approach. His bat speed is of the elite. He's everything that you would want in a position player. One of the small things that I heard from scouts was, maybe he was a little big for his britches, but I mean, I want that egotistical. I want the player that thinks he's the best on the field. And for the money that he got, in that free agent signing, and being, pretty much the most highly sought after prospect, position prospect in that international free agent class, like it needs to come with a just like a hint of arrogance.
Mhm.
And from what I've heard, he has just a hint. He's still great with coaches and everything, but he still thinks that he's the man. And I personally love that. I know some people don't love it, but I personally do. I want someone that's confident in themselves. And I just think he's his from everything from rival scouts, I talked to one Dodger scout, and he straight up told me that Torrens was the best player on the field, and that includes the Dodgers team at the time too. So someone with great accolades and someone that looks like he's ready to make that next step and really make a name for himself going into 2026.
And backed it up too. I mean, it's DSL numbers. I get it, but I mean, came in and immediately just show it. We haven't seen that with some of these international prospects the Braves have signed
Didn't
recently.
strike out.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's good to see. And we'll see where they put him next year. I mean, I would guess he's at least gonna be in the FCL, but do you think if he gets off to a good start there, we could see him at Augusta?
I think so. I think if he puts the same type of performance on that he did last year, I think we see him in the FCL for like a month or two, and then they test. I mean, they were super aggressive with Tate last year. The fact that Tate even showed up in full season ball was very surprising. So if they're gonna do that with someone like Tate, I imagine if Diego performed as well as he did in the FCL as he did in the DSL last year, we'll see him in Augusta.
Yeah, that would be very, very exciting. And what he said, he's mine too. I think, many people consider him to have the highest ceiling in the system. So can't wait to see what he can do once he does get over to full season ball. Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Braves. Thanks so much again to Gaurav for joining the show today. We'll be back again on Wednesday, Christmas Eve. We'll have an episode with myself and Lindsay giving out Christmas gifts. You won't want to miss that. We'll have part 1 of that here at Locked On Braves, and then part 2 over on his podcast, Braves Today. So make sure you check those out on Christmas Eve. And if you're listening to this Christmas week, hope you have a great Christmas and a great holiday. If you're traveling, be safe, and hope you enjoy time with family. You can find me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Find the podcast on Twitter, X at LockedOn_Braves, or Locked On Braves on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much for joining again. If you're new on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, leave us a comment down below. And on the audio side, please leave a 5-star review on podcast, Spotify, or whatever podcast you listen to, Apple, Spotify. You can find us anywhere that you get your podcasts. And don't forget, if you haven't already, if Locked On Braves made your Spotify Wrapped, prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to members-only Discord channel. Again, thanks for listening and making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Also, make sure you subscribe again on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.